Hello, everyone. Hello, sisters. My name is Denise Cordero. I am a holistic life coach and soul mentor, and you are tuning into Diving Deep. I'm so excited to have this beautiful woman on my program again today, Lydia Ignacio. Just in case you have not tuned in to our first podcast together, I want to give her the introduction she deserves. Lydia's passions lie in helping people find the hope, strength, and belief in themselves needed to propel their lives forward, succeed in stepping into their purpose and actualizing their truest self. With over 15 years of experience in the social service and psychology field, and her love for the alternative arts of healing therapy, she works to customize services to help you claim your power. She first works to help you shed the mental, emotional, and physical blocks impeding your progression, to then help you carefully craft a comfortable and feasible plan of action to execute your most merited desires. The experience is manifesting in the making by positively cultivating your truest actualization of self into reality. Welcome again to Diving Deep.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Such an honor to be part of anything that has to do with our healing journey, with helping others. I appreciate you and your bravery in taking on what you have taken on as well. So thank
Well,
you.
my goodness, it's so great to have you. Appreciate your presence and that we're connecting again. For our sisters, I want to remind them this is not only a program or a community about diving deep and having raw and authentic conversations about, not about just being embodied as a woman and sort of everything that we go through, everything that we struggle in our healing journey and sharing our triumphs. But it is growing into this mission, a mission to really create a beautiful world where we're free of labels, free of stereotypes, where we help others really get past traumas, and self-limiting beliefs and be able to actualize and really
Right.
have true life transformations where you're living your life with purpose. But not only that, I think that once you've had that massive transformation, then that becomes a catalyst for us to be able to like unite communities, unite nations, unite
Absolutely.
countries, unite the entire world. So it is about self love, but then taking that and projecting out into the world and really truly being of service. And
Right.
so your work really truly resonates with me, because we need more of these people. We need more of us in the
Yeah.
world that truly not only want to help the next sister or the next brother and uplift and empower, but once each and every one of those people is living from their truth and living with purpose, then they're able to help others. So
Exactly.
it
Precisely
goes
that.
on and on. It goes on and on. Now, I know that in our last podcast, we really got to know your beginning, where you
Right.
started, your own personal journey, your own trauma, and sort of the symptomatology that comes with,
Yeah.
having traumatic experiences and sort of
Right.
who we become, um, a lot of the pathology that comes from
Right.
trauma, and then being able to become self-aware and to heal from that.
Right.
Of course you became a social worker, so why
Right.
don't you kind of start us there, how
Right.
you chose that path and how it led you to reaching heights.
Well, it started with you go to college, you're like, what major will you want? I actually started out as an acting major. kind of like just that need and that love for self expression. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to definitely some of the things that you said, and I'll bring it back. But it started out with that. It was that I had very early on a need to express myself, right? To be seen. Because one of the symptoms, one of the consequences of trauma is that don't feel seen, right? We don't feel heard. In a way, trauma does exactly that. It takes away our voice, it takes away our rights, it takes away our confidence when we suffer through traumatic events. And so, because of coming from that, there was this need for me to express myself, to really be heard. So I was always in the arts, always creative, singing, I was convinced I wanted to be an actress because I wanted to travel the world, get to know the world, but also because I wanted to explore different facets of the human spirit. I felt like an actor or an actress really is able to be so many people at the same time, right? You're
Yeah.
able to play a role and really embody that role and kind of di- dive in and really figure out what is it that makes a person a certain way. Like if you're studying acting, a lot of the work is that it's like really trying to understand how to act out a role is by really trying to get into the psychology of what that person feels, why they feel, and why they react a certain way, right? Given a
Yes.
script. And so my journey started as an acting major. Then I went to college. I was in an acting major. I went to a Annandale, a Bard college. It was uptown. It was known as a hippie school. It was liberal arts. It transitioned slowly into now the math and science. I mean, the Bard College that it is today, if you checked it out, very different. It's math and science now. It used to be liberal arts mainly. But what can I say? It was very hippie-ish. I found myself, I was one of the very few minorities that were pursuing the kind of arts and being in acting. My very practical mother was like, that's not gonna be what's gonna get you a job. You do something else. So I started exploring psychology, and it just was an easy transition because, again, part of acting was really getting into people's heads and understanding why they do it. And so I wanted to understand more. It was something that I was very intrigued, like what does make somebody act a certain way. And then especially with knowing, I always wanted to, within self-expression, also always help. I always wanted to shed light, is always how I put it. Like wherever I went, I wanted to shed happiness and I wanted to shed light. And so through psychology, learning more about that, about what makes a person really tick, what makes them respond a certain way, engage in certain ways, things that were unbeknownst to me, like um not being I'm not very timid, so even understanding people that were timid or people that were shy as to like why aren't you expressing yourself more kind of idea. So I just started with psychology. I progressed into that. It became my major. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed understanding people, and more than anything, how to first understand where they are, right? Because it really starts where they are.
Right.
Because you can't really help anybody if you don't understand where they are or where they've been. Even yourself, a lot of therapy, traditional therapy, psychotherapy, it's really much about, diving into who you were, who you are, why you are, how you became that way. And so that's really it got into psychology, majored in it. I wasn't sure once I graduated what specific population I wanted to work in, or, what I did know is that I wanted a combination about things. I didn't see myself with as much as a colorful personality as I have. I could not see myself just like sitting behind an office or behind a desk, kind of like pushing paper or just listening to somebody all day without being actively engaged. It wasn't like I didn't see myself in the form of formal talk therapy, just being a psychotherapist or some kind of therapist. I wanted to do more. So I took a job as a social worker when I originally, as a case manager. And I actually took that job with the elderly population. I fell in love with the elderly, for the same reasons. It was their stories that got me. It was the stories of lives, of their entire lives. And you would hear, and just I was fascinated by it. Was like I was living many lives, which was the reason why I wanted to do acting, right? I was
Yeah.
living many lives in one. I got to have a conversation and I felt like I was really onto something. I said, I can learn so much from other people's mistakes, really, from their lives, just listening to them. I was able to learn the truest gems of life, like what really mattered at the end of it all. I was immediately thrown into to work with people that were on their deathbeds,
Wow.
people that were, I mean, have come at the end of it. I worked with the mental health population. So I mean, I met people that were professional their entire lives and just kind of had a late onset of schizophrenia, lost it all, like it was amazing to see these stories. I got involved with homelessness from there, and like I say, it was amazing to see these stories. How you saw people, how it all could happen, and how anything can happen in life, and it's about being how you handle it and being able to persevere it. And so I just took that in as a young person, learned more and more from the elderly, just their stories, listening in, and then seeing how full lives, it all led to the same thing. And I saw throughout that, I was also journeying and very interested in alternative, therapies, into Reiki, into crystal healing, sound healing, things like that. Always had a very spiritual side to myself. Communicating, definitely communicating with spirits, seeing spirits, feeling spirits since very young, communicating with angels, from very young. That's something that, to me was very true, was very real part of my life. Understanding to how to manifest and manipulate, in other words, kind of the elements in ways to bring forth any manifestation. And that was also very much a part of my life. So with reaching heights, I got to learn populations. That's when I delved into social work. That's when I decided to pursue my master in social work specifically, because it allowed me to work in an array, in a range of fields. I still yet didn't know specifically how I wanted to craft my specialties, because I was finding more and more, and as time went, and as I learned through all these different modalities, that there were different parts of myself, different methodologies, different kind of mediums in which you could use things. Studying cultures, studying different religions, even. I minored in languages. I learned Chinese. I started to, just learning the different cultures and different ways that people, you know believe, their beliefs, and how they work through it, how they how they healed, right? A lot of it. I knew that I wanted a fusion, because I wasn't all, as they say, Western, and I wasn't definitely all Eastern, that kind of idea. I wasn't just all talk therapy, psychotherapy. That wasn't what I liked. I also, social work, it was the practicality of it. Social work deals with psychology and with therapy and the therapeutic arts, but it also deals with practical. It deals with what needs to be done, right? Social work specifically isn't just let's figure out your past. It's okay, regardless of the past, this is where you are, let's get you to where you need to go. And that's social work, right? It's about utilizing your resources and pulling from everywhere to get you where you need to go, and help you get to where you need to go. And so that was the appeal specifically for social services.
Mhm.
And then I got into human services and community services, and kind of being able to help people on a more on a group level, not just individual level. I struggled with that as well, which is why I didn't want to just do psychotherapy. I didn't want to just one person at a time, just sitting there. And it just felt so inactive to me, not only for me, but also I believe that it takes more than just listening. It takes more than that. It's like, okay, so now I've heard your story. Now what, right? You need some direction, you need some guidance, because it's not just about where you were, for where you want to go. And that's really it all came together. And as I started doing the work, I started doing sales, I started doing that. I got a little bit of everything, all the studying. I got into a lot of the different modalities. I created a combination. I wanted to create a combination. And that's where Reaching Heights came from, where I wanted to create a combination of modalities. And that's where I say my practice is unique in that it's not one mode of therapy, but rather a combination of different modalities that you can use. And I customize it. So it really comes based on your beliefs, based on what where you are, where you come from, what you're comfortable with, but also introducing other things that may be comfortable with for you. Maybe people aren't familiar with crystal healing or sound healing, but perhaps if or aromatherapy even, but perhaps if I engage in it, they see the use in it. And all these are really tools, right? They're tools to really get you to open up and the heart of the matter. So through my work through psychology, through my work through being a social worker, through understanding these modalities that you could use all these different kind of tools, the idea is not only help you discover and understand who you are because of where you came from, but how where you are now, how to go to where you want to go, right? And it's also even that
True.
discovering where do you want to go, because most
Yes.
people just don't have any idea.
Don't
They
have
have
the
no
clarity.
clue about what they really want, what who they really are, because we're conditioned by society in so many different ways, by our cultures. We're told to want certain things a certain way. Like even marriage, right? We're taught relationships should be a certain way. I say no. Relationships are about two people, not about entire society, but two people. So two people can create whatever rules are okay with them, right? But then it's discovering that and understanding what is okay with you, not what your mom tells you, not what society tells you, not what anybody else tells you, but what are you actually okay with? And a lot of times you have to dive into that work first to get to know yourself, to get to know what you truly want, what truly makes you happy.
So
Then
true.
you dissect where you are and how that's not making you happy. And then
Yeah.
you can actually start to envision what you actually possibly could want. And once we get there, then we can actually build a plan to actually get you there. So it's definitely a whole package thing. It's not I can service at many different levels. I can build. You can come to me and say, all I want is a plan for this to build this business. Fine, I will help you at that level. But as we work together, I'll definitely always question: is this what you truly want? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What if it isn't what you truly want? And really, you know, making sure that whoever it is that I'm work with, it fulfills the same purpose. That they understand that they can really tap into who they really are, what they really want, so they can get what they want.
That's amazing. There's so much to unpack. I have like so
Yes,
many juicy questions, so I may take you down a rabbit hole
please do, please do.
with so many things. So first, you talking about um not only from a creative or artistic um lens, but understanding the psychology of what goes on in people's minds and what forms their belief systems and different things, and then getting involved with the elderly population and diving into groups and end of life and palliative care. When you started working with these people, did you have your own beliefs or your own preconceived notions going into that work, and then we're like, wow, there's so much here that I didn't know or didn't understand, or um that I'm newly discovering?
Well, you have an idea of like what's important about life. And really, what I discovered with the elderly population is what's truly important about life. That at the end of it all, it doesn't matter what walks of life you may take. At the end of it all, it becomes about how true of a person you were to you and to others, and about who is around you in your last moments. That's really what it becomes about.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they had wealth. It doesn't matter if they were somebody professional or their whole lives they weren't professional. It could be somebody that did drugs all their lives, but was really good to their kids, and yet they have their kids around them, and so because of that, in that, fine, can die a little bit more peaceful, right? Because they had better relationships than somebody that was a professional, never, doesn't hasn't talked to their family, kind of just really estranged from their family. And here they are just leaning against a stranger. I became, maybe for many, that person. And it just became so clear that it doesn't matter what you do with your life. It's a matter of how true you were to yourself and to others, and the relationships you build. And at the end of the day, when you are in that deathbed, is, do you have regrets or not?
Mhm.
Do you have regrets or not? Do you regret being a certain way or not being a certain way? And it's leading your life in a way that makes you proud and happiest of all. Because it could be that you were estranged from your family, but you were estranged from your family because you emancipated and you did what you wanted to do. And so you're going to be at peace with that because you lived the life that was best for you, as opposed to doing just what your family wanted the whole time. So you have family around you, but you never were able to truly express yourself. And I've seen all those spectrum. So it became about really, really knowing, like, expressing yourself and living life your way, having lived the life that you wanted your way. And if you have regrets or not, based on that.
Wow. So learning these things, and especially one thing you said was like learning from their mistakes.
Yeah.
When you got that experience and you hear these stories, did at one point in time, did it make you question how you were living your own life and say, I need to pivot in this direction? I need to pivot in, because I'm now seeing for myself what truly is important.
Yeah, I think it propelled me to really want to know what I wanted to do. Because, like I said, I struggled with, I didn't want the traditional, I just knew that, didn't want this traditional kind of therapy or even social work. I'm still engaging in social work, but I know that I want more than that. You know, it just really made me understand that, not to settle, or and that your life is your own, and that you owe it to yourself to really know and explore what that is, and to make that happen. And so mainly it taught it was like, okay, what do you really want? What kind of life do you really want, Lydia? What, when you're in your deathbed, what is it that you want to remember, or you know not have any regrets? It just really taught me I don't want to have regrets. So I want to do what I want to do. I want, it taught me what kind of old lady do I want to be. And I'm like, I would often like make jokes about that, like, I want to be this little old lady telling all these stories of all these crazy things I did, right? If I even remember how I did that and that, and making my grandchildren laugh, right? But I knew that I wanted that. That meant what? A family. That meant that I wanted to have good relationships with my family, but that I wanted to do it my way. That maybe I was crazy grandma, but grandma did everything, and I wanted to also infuse that into my children and my grandchildren, which is, what? Do whatever makes you happy. Doesn't matter what your mom says, doesn't matter what your dad says, doesn't matter what grandma says. Do whatever makes you happy, you know? And that was what I learned. Do whatever makes you happy. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with it. You're the one that has to go to sleep and wake up every morning and look at yourself in the mirror. And you're the one that's going to be on that deathbed. And you're the one that's going to know if you lived a good life or not. It isn't in the measure of anybody else but you. So do what makes you happy, because life is also short. Is this long life? You think that 70, 80 years is long, but most of our lives goes away, just wastes away.
Oh my
And
God,
most
it
of
goes
it
so
serving
fast.
others,
Yes.
serving others, not yourself, you
Yeah.
know? So really, it is a short life. As long as it may seem, it's a short life, and you never know what you have. And also that everything happens in stages, you know? It's like when you're older, you have the knowledge and the wisdom, and you wish you had the energy. When you're young, you have all the energy and the physical ability, but you lack the wisdom. You lack the
Yeah.
understanding to know what's better and to do what's better. So you hear that from old people all the time, from older people all the time. How man, la juventud y que no, no se aprovechan la juventud because they're able to do it, but then they just don't understand or grasp again what's
Yes.
important. And you always hear that from older people, where it's like, if I could do it again, or if I did it again, or if I knew then what I knew now, kind of idea. And
Yes.
so that's what I wanted to learn from. I wanted to learn that from, like, what I knew, if I knew then, what I knew now. So now I'm able to, like, I'm collecting all these gems, and I want to, make sure that I make that, I use that, and use that in my life. So when I am in that position, I could say, you know what, I lived a good life. I lived life the way I wanted to, and I'm happy.
That's awesome. So the other thing that I thought about sort of unpacking as well, in my experience with my clients, many of them have gone down the route of therapy. And I myself have been to a therapist, and I can tell all the benefits that I've had from my own therapist, but always find that a lot of my clients were like, there was a stop point where I felt where I was just talking about, I was in this kind of replay about my childhood, about my trauma, about what that story was. But then I didn't move forward. Like, what then? How do I, how do I create the life that I want to? How do I move forward from that? And I think it's such a beautiful thing to be now in this space, sharing stories and anecdotes and what works and what doesn't work with someone who has a degree in the field of psychology, where I have studied psychology, obviously
Right.
studied psychology, um, and um, and know a little bit about social work, but you have a degree in those fields. So I think that you can speak so eloquently to, and much more intelligently than I can, to what are the pros and what are the pitfalls. Where does social work and psychology kind of end, and where does the coaching work and the mentoring sort of take over?
Right. And it's exactly as you described it. It's there's so much that you can do in talk therapy. It's like, okay, so now here's your story, which really dives into what you've been through, who you are because of where you've been, right? But then it's like, now what? Now what, right? So, okay, we've done that. Now I understand that I have, I may be timid, or the fears that I have, or the doubts that I have come from something that happened to me. So now we understand it, right? So social work now, it's like, and so this is how I see it in my transition. So that clinical part of me is exactly that, right? Helping you dive into your past, why you are the way you are, what have brought you to this. Then the social work part is pulling resources, because that's what a social worker is. Social worker is a connector, that it's that bridge. They're the ones that say, here's this resource, get this grant from here, let's apply to this program here, let's do the, what is it that you need housing, we got to look for this. That's the social worker part. They're like, they're that worker bee, connecting everything, bridging everything for you, and making those connections. And so that's where then I would utilize those skills to kind of say, okay, I've heard your story, I hear you, I see you, now you see yourself. Now let's get into what you want, right? What is it that you truly want? And the social work helps create that plan so we can execute that plan. So it says, okay, you feel that you actually, your career choice would be better in education. So what do you have to do to get that? Let's start here. You have to get a degree in this. Let's enroll you. What classes are there around you? Oh, but I have work. Okay, so let's look at some online classes. Let's look at, problem solving. Social workers problem solve all day long. And so it's taking you from there to understanding what you want. And then that social work part is being able to pull in those resources to plan it out. The coaching then comes in the after, because then you have this great plan, right? And that's usually what happens with social work in a lot of avenues. The positions that there are in today's in age, the way it's utilized, it's very short term. It's like you go to the social worker for this thing. Like if it's in a hospital, it's to discharge you. If it's outside of that, it's to help you with housing specifically. It's to these very short term specific things. So that's when it transitioned into that aftercare, into that mentoring, into that coaching. And that's when that mother guidance of me comes out. And it's like, okay, so we've gone through with you where you've been, why you are, what you truly want. Now we have a plan, how we're going to do it, how we're going to achieve it. And then there's that part that then comes in and walk and holds your hand through it, holds your hand through the entire experience. So we break it down in phases, and I'm there with you, and I'm being your cheerleader, and I'm being your coach, and I'm checking in, and I'm holding you accountable as well, right? From falling into old patterns. And then there's
Yeah.
that part, there's that transition into the mentoring, into the coaching, into you walking you through it until you feel that you're able to walk alone. Because the idea with any kind of service and therapy, it's not forever. It's to get you to a point where you are strong enough to now stand on your own, and then be able to continue on.
Great. So, besides the certain limitations of not taking you forward through, actualization, or through co-creating with the universe the desires that you have, being able to manifest true things that you want in your life, would you say that another of the pitfalls or sort of shortcomings of psychotherapy or one-on-one counseling is that it has a tendency of labeling and just making everything a pathology?
Right.
If you've been through a traumatic experience in your life and you seem stuck, well, now you're depressed, or now you're
Right.
anxious, or
Right.
now you have PTSD, and there's a label for everything that kind of stigmatizes the
Absolutely.
person, instead of saying this is a natural and normal occurrence that we go through psychologically, emotionally, biologically. Something has happened to us to kick our nervous system out of gear, you
Right.
know? And so we our bodies kind of stay in this fight or flight motion. It's a defense mechanism,
Right. Right.
and it's not necessarily a pathology. It's not that I'm crazy, it's not
Right.
that I'm depressed or anxious or that I'm PTSD. Is that something very real happened,
Right.
and this is the way that I'm coping, you
Right.
know
And everything you said is absolutely right. Everything you said is absolutely right in the terms that, yes, this is you coping. This is you coping out of something that happened very real. But it's
yeah.
also true that you are depressed, that you are anxious, that you do have PTSD. We all are capable of it. Every single one of us are capable of experiencing these symptoms. Now I'll tell you, a big part, because it does depend on the therapy and the therapist that you go to. It does depend on the
Yeah.
practice that you utilize, right? If you're utilizing something that is maybe government funded, or things like that, it really has to do with insurances. And I'll be frank, very frank about it.
Yeah.
Most therapists would like to not engage in such limiting um pathologies, and they even when we are taught to be very wary on how we label somebody, because of the great impact it will have in their lives, right? Especially when we're dealing with children or adolescents. It can create an entire, just project their entire life. It creates an entire uh, very limiting belief, put again parameters in their life that actually can shape the rest of their future. And
Yeah.
so most therapists would most likely want to stray away from, but I really do know that a lot of it has to do with health insurance, and the way that it is, all set up, and the way that even anybody in this modality Because people that become therapists is really is because they want to help, they want to help others. Comes from that good place. But in order to get paid, there's different things. Like you have, like, insurances will pay you for certain things and not for other things, right? So you may have to say this person is this just to get paid, and you hear those stories out there all the time. So it's really kind of a struggle for therapists to try to bring service, to provide services, but still get kind of reimbursed for the
Yeah.
services. So it's this kind of push and pull game, on it. But yes, it does depend on the therapist to walk you through these things. If you are often diagnosed, it might be early on. If you need, for instance, some kind of psychotropic medication to help you cope, then you need a diagnosis, in order for them to prescribe anything. But what I'll tell you is that each and every one of us has will, or and is capable of being depressed, of being anxious, of having anxiety, of having some sort of symptoms of PTSD, of we are all capable of having a psychotic break, that is in each and every one of us. So there is also the stigmas of, if I'm depressed, am I crazy, right? Is all these stigmas that are really based on society, and it comes from that. And so that's also part of the work. Own it, you know, own it. Yes, I was depressed. Does it mean that I'm going to be depressed? I'm a depressive person for the rest of my life? No, I was depressed for a certain moment in my life. It was difficult. Or maybe I struggle with depression because it is a chemical imbalance. It is a chemical imbalance. Some of us, our bodies, unfortunately, have a chemical imbalance where we may struggle with depression on a everlasting way, just like bipolarism. Again, I'm a clinical psychologist, social worker, so it's all about those really difficult mental health issues like schizophrenia, like, bipolarism. Those are very real issues, very real chemical imbalances. It's not because somebody chooses or wants to. They're really living and are captive of the malfunction, in a way, the chemical imbalance really in their brain. It's really, they really are a product of something that's happening very real. They very real hear voices. They very really see things that are not there, and they really believe it, and it really does disturb their life. And so when there's spectrums to everything. And so there's a spectrum of really abnormal psychology, which is issues, as I'm naming: schizophrenia, bipolarism, major depression, which is something that continues, right? Those are true anxieties. I mean, there are so many, mental health diseases that is completely different. And then there's the everyday kind of struggles that people may go through, where they may experience depression after certain things that happen. They may experience general anxiety after certain moments, and then it goes away. Those are temporary, and that's an everyday kind of life. So it really does depends on what we're dealing with, because there are some spectrums where, yeah, it's PTSD, and people are having flashbacks, and people are not able to sleep,
Yeah.
and people are truly having anxiety and panic attacks, and they
Yeah.
really aren't able to function in a normal way in society. They aren't able to keep a job. They aren't able to really keep, normal relationships. Borderline personality. I mean, I've worked with a spectrum of all these people, and to see it in action, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult life. They're struggling to have some kind of, they're struggling against themselves. They're struggling against their own brain, their own body, that's sort of betraying them, because they want something different. When they have insight, when they have moments of clarity, they're not asking for it, they're not pretending. It's something that they're struggling with. And those are already a spectrum. But then on the everyday life, people just everyday, normal, life in itself, it is
Yeah.
a trigger to us all, because especially the way things are getting. So we can all experience the same things at one time or another. So it is about the stigma once again, and then it is about the modality, it is about the spectrum that you're in, you know, and 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 unfortunately, as always, has everything has to do with money, right? And being able to get paid to help, or in different professions that can be accepted in society for one way or the other. So it's really a whole jungle mix there, a whole pot that everybody there, between therapists, between healers, between coaches, everybody out there that's really trying to balance it out.
Yeah. In your experience or your thoughts from what you know, where do you think we are in as far as mental health in our society? Are we over medicated? Are there other options? Are there alternatives?
I my real opinion is that most of us just don't know what to do. Most of us don't know what to do. We feel helpless. We feel hopelessness. We don't know what to do, how to claim our lives, how to claim our power. Everything becomes difficult. And and I really have to talk about socioeconomic status there, because that's a big one. Like life coaching and coaching and counseling services, that's for people that have more money, which that's when it becomes that struggle that we're talking about. Because if I'm somebody that is poor, that's not able to afford anything, all I have is like what Medicaid pays or what insurances pay, right? And now that's where that spectrum comes, where a lot of people get labeled, mislabeled, right? Just in order to get the help that they need. So here's where we're talking about socioeconomic status. There are so many challenges, so much racial injustice, right, in the infrastructure that prevent impoverished people, black, brown mainly, but also white, just if you have a low socioeconomic status, from being able to lift yourself up. And that struggle becomes more and more real and denser with every, I mean, unfortunately, as you can see, our times, with every year that passes. Instead of
Right.
it becoming easier, it's becoming more and more difficult. Now it's like the middle class has disappeared. We have we have low income, and we have high income, and very little middle class. So what does that mean? How much more does it take somebody to jump from low to high? It's the gap is getting bigger and bigger between us. And so what does that leave? Is that in order for you to actually make it, for you to feel that you own something, to actually grab hold of your power and come into your power and into what you want, it takes a hell of a lot.
A lot of work.
It takes a lot of work, a lot of struggle, a lot of belief. And so what's the easier thing to do? The easier thing to do is to just give into what society has programmed you to do. And so you just work a job that doesn't pay you enough, that doesn't give you enough hours. You spend your day working, very little with family. And so what you decide to do to kind of unwind, you want to play that Xbox, you want to smoke a joint, you want to, you want to do
Escapism.
escapism. You fall so easily,
Yes.
and it's all around us, and it's actually the option that is given to us. This is also talking about, I mean, we're diving into deeper, as is this podcast, diving much deeper into structural program, issues in our society that are really, we really are up against. We
Yeah.
really truly are up against. And it's not a figment. It's covered up very well, but it is not a figment. It's even like the access to drugs in the streets, the access to, to so many things, right? That keep us, most of us, keep us numb, keep us dull, keep us from actually being able to process, being able to act, right? Because it just becomes that, it becomes so much easier to just give into what you're being told to do, which is sit down, right? Just sit down and numb yourself, and that's it, because you feel powerless and you feel hopelessness.
Um,
And that's really the truth. It really has to do with a lot of facets, and that's really what we're fighting, you know? That's really what we're fighting. So that's what I mean. It's not that I can obviously, ding, I'm not a fairy godmother and can like take away structural racism and take away, but I can tell you this is what you need to do. I can look for all the resources and I can tell you you can do it. And I can hold your hand through it. And that's what I can do, right?
Thank you for being there and to be able to connect resources and tools to people to be able to bridge that gap so that they
Right,
have a way, so that they have hope.
right.
um so that, going back to you founding Reaching Heights, so you started this organization or you started this business at that time. Who was your tribe? What were you thinking about? What was your heart saying to you?
My gosh, Reaching Heights was really birth, finally understanding what I wanted to do and putting
Yeah.
everything together. And Reaching Heights, you know, it took me a lot to kind of formulate it, to yeah, to formulate it together, you know, where I wanted, and it's even going through transformation still. um you know, when you talk about going through adversity, like I actually launched it while I was going through one of the darkest time in my life, because I had lost my partner. I was 8 months pregnant. He died. I lost him. I had my baby. I, like, for the first time since I was 18, had to move in back with my mom, which was a struggle in itself. But because of it, I said no. Reaching height, me launching Reaching Heights was like, again, my like, I'm taking my power, right? No, I am not going to just fall apart and everything that I've seen, everything that I've gone through, everything that I've tried to pull together, let it fall to the wayside. And so I launched it then, in October of 2 years ago now. And you know, a lot has happened since then, but it came together out of knowing that I can do it. I didn't have a tribe per se. What I did was learn by myself. I researched. I say, you know, what I did know, what I did have is belief in myself. And what I did have is the support of others telling me I can, and telling me, yes, you can do it. Nobody knew. And another reason why I want to reach hearts, you know, nobody in my circle, I don't have anybody that I can say was a role model to show me how to do business, to show me how to create a business, not even how to create an LLC, like how to found it. Nobody in my circle has done this, you know, not anybody that I know closely. Maybe friends of friends of friends or whatever, but not anybody that I knew that can help me. So I had to study. I say, this is what I want to do. How do I do it? Right. And that was like, again, the same skills that I learned out of my profession. So it's like, if I can do this for other people, I can do this for myself. What do I have to learn? How do I learn how to do this? I knew I needed to network. I went to as many events as I could. I took as many free classes as I could to learn, what do I have to do? I have to learn about social media management. I have to learn how to create an LLC. I had to learn, you know, and I gathered all the information in that way. So the tribe that I did have were people believing in me and me believing in me. But nobody that could tell me, this is what you do, this is where you got to go, this is where you get this, where you get that, you know, because they didn't know that. But I did at least have belief. I had confidence and I had people that believed in me and said, you can do it. You can do anything you want. So go. And so it was just me really, that it was just, that was the fuel that I needed, you know. Reaching heights, I utilize, the phoenix is the symbol that I utilize, which is rising from the ashes, right? That's what a phoenix does. Because and everything I talk about is about rising, right? Together we rise, and we shall rise, and always I will rise, because no matter what happens in our lives, no matter what downfall, the idea is that you have to know yourself. As I say, know thyself, right? Know thyself. This was also in Greek mythology. Know thyself. Know what you want. Know your capabilities. Believe in that. and don't let, you may fall, you can get back up and utilize those same skills. And so that's what reaching heights is. And it's that phoenix that I utilize, because it's about that. It's not that you don't get burned. It's not that you don't fall apart.
That's right.
Is that you will always and can always rise.
Yeah. So when you think about the people that you want to serve, what does that look like? Who is that person? Can you speak to them now?
Yeah, and this has been actually one of the hardest part of me, identifying and defining, because when anything that you do, it's they talk about define your target audience, as they say, right? This has been difficult for me to define, because who I'm looking for and who I'm talking to are anybody that finds themselves struggling, who doesn't believe in themselves, anybody that's out there feeling hopeless, feeling helpless, right? And so that really doesn't have a socioeconomic status.
That's a lot of people,
That's a
Lydia.
lot of people. But you know
Shit.
what? That's why I want my message to reach. And whoever it is that needs it at the time that they need it, it will
Right.
find it.
It
Because my
will
idea is,
resonate.
yes, like the PIV Pledge is this project, one of my projects, which is Pay It Forward, the Pay It Forward program. And it's about getting together in unity and being able to create projects to help either community development, or community in every sense of the word. It could be community as a culture or community as a neighborhood, but really it's about community development, right? And
Yes.
so it's that same idea, like really who I'm talking to are those people that are broken, those people that are broken. And so it's still hard for me to say what socioeconomic status that is. Am I talking just to women? No. Am I just talking, obviously I think it is more older folks. I think it is a spectrum of maybe perhaps 30 to 50 in a range, because those are the folks that I believe are really have had some experiences, have may had some falls, right? And need to reinvent themselves, or need the strength to find themselves. So I do define it sort of in age, in the parameters of age, from 30 to 50. I believe that is more of the target audience, but even that is very broad. Who I would ideally like to serve more than anything are those that are impoverished, those that do have a lack of resources, but it's for all. It really is for all, because the same woman that could be in a wealthy relationship, that's trapped in their home, getting, suffering domestic violence, right? While it could be, somebody that is just a struggling single mother that doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to, you know, what to do in order to propel themselves forward, because they're intelligent, but they dropped out of high school and they just need to figure it out. So the spectrum is broad, but really it's for those people out there, 20 to 50, that you find yourself broken, you find yourself, I don't know what to do. Let's figure out what to do.
I think that's amazing. I think, like you, when I first started doing this work, I felt that um for me, my tribe, my audience became other women like me. And so I still do. I see so much of myself in other women and what they're going through, except that I may be, 5 steps ahead or 10 steps ahead. So I see what they're going through and can help them, take them to where I have landed today. Though the more that I speak, the more that I talk about my story, the more people that I help, I find that my purpose is growing so much into this bigger mission, that it's not just about, the woman that's my neighbor, or it's not about the woman that has suffered trauma. It's not about the girl that has been raped. It's not about the single mother that raised children on her
Right,
own. It's become about people. It's become about people and how we see ourselves.
right,
And um you know women are not the only ones that suffer trauma. Men
right,
as well.
exactly.
Men as well. And in sharing stories from, for example, my daughter Adrian, who's a trans female, um that has opened up a whole different community of people that
Exactly.
I never originally thought that my message would come across.
Right.
And yet and still we have, I've had trans men reach out to me and say, look, I listened to that, I heard that story, and
Right.
this is how this story touched me.
Right.
And then I'm like, we have people from all walks of life that are experiencing trauma, have experienced trauma, that do struggle with not believing in themselves, that do
Right.
struggle with limiting beliefs, that are going through stereotypes, that are going through labels, that are, that are really being boxed into, this is what you should be, or this is what you need to be, or you'll never
Exactly.
amount to anything more
Right.
than this.
Right.
And it's like breaking that
Right.
cycle, breaking that viciousness of being limited and being boxed in, to
Exactly.
so that we can expand and really see how limitless we can be as humans.
Exactly.
And
I wouldn't want to limit that to say just Latinas, um, just Latinas, 30 to 40. That's so limiting. They are, I think, through everything in my beliefs is that there's a oneness to us all. I mean, there's a oneness
yes,
between us all, between the trees, between the animals that live here. I mean, we are all part of each other. So for me to say I'm only interested in helping Latinas 30 to 50, that's just, I definitely don't want to limit it, because it's not only Latinas that are struggling. It's not only Latinas that feel, broken at times or helpless or hopeless. There's so many more people. Now the age, yes, because it's about to stamp in experience in life. You know what I mean? By a certain time, by 30, you have experienced enough, or you have gone through some things to kind of to know a little bit more about life and what you want or what you've been through, or know that you don't want it, and things like that. So it definitely, what we're trying to do here is to remove the restrictions, remove the boxing anybody in, right? But rather really opening it up.
expanding. That's great. Can you talk more about the PIV pledge? Because I think that this is so beautiful. And, it can't stop with that one person that we help
Yeah.
or that group that we help. It has to be a catalyst for that change to continue onward, where those people feel empowered and are helping others as well. Was this something that you originally wanted to be part of reaching heights, or was this just a rumination that came afterwards and you're like, this is not complete if it doesn't have this?
No, it absolutely was from the beginning, from its inception. Because one thing, in taking it back to some of the things that you said at the beginning about self-love, and it's exactly that, is that fundamentally what I believe is that if we can, as individuals, feel happiness and whole, feel confidence, then we're able to give the best of ourselves. When we can give the best of ourselves, we're living in love. And we are living in love, that is a ripple effect. I mean, I
Yes.
do strongly believe that the entire universe is based on a ripple effect, right? A leaf falls and the entire universe is affected and impacted by that leaf falling. And that is a very fundamental belief that I have. And so it comes down to self love and self actualization, realization, because I believe that that is when we are our truest, our happiest. And when we are our truest and our happiest, then the most that we can give, the best that could come out of us, is the best of us, is the most of us, is the positive love of us, is what's going to come out. And if that's what we give, then that is just a ripple effect, and it's just a perpetuation. And that's what the PIF pledge is. It actually came from that movie. I'm sure everybody knows it, right?
Pay it
The
forward.
pay it forward, right? That idea, the minute I saw that, impacted me for the rest of my life. And I understood, man, that's exactly how it should be, because the interconnectedness that we all share is amazing. It's like everything, the 6 degree of separation idea, just to pay it forward, it came from that. And that's what the PIV pledge is, pay it forward pledge, where it's this idea that if we can at least dedicate some time to helping one another, to creating a positive impact, that person is going to be empowered, and then they will do the same to others at one degree or another. And then that is the way I envision it, is that is this beautiful positive vibe, this empowerment, this vibe of empowerment that's being just passed on and kind of just resonating and just really bursting out into the universe, and creating a ripple effect in that way. And so it's my way of sharing love, and trying to help love to be passed on and to continue to be propelled, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what the PIV pledge is, to pay it forward. And it's about people getting together to create together, anything that has to do with the community. It could be in response to any current events happening, to any natural disasters happening, or it could be just a group of people that wanted to get together, some guidance, and together find the resources to put a project together. If anybody has a project that they feel they need help or guidance, and bringing forth like something, for women or abused women, or this, or something for men, or whatever it is that they feel that will help a community, I'm all for it. And it can be, again, something that has to do with current events like Black Lives Matter, like, right now, this presidency, if people want to get together and do that. But that is a section where, everybody that works with me, I do introduce it. Obviously, it's voluntary, that I do offer the opportunity to be a part of that community. It comes with an online community where we can get together and kind of think about these ideas. And the way I envision it, it's just a group that takes a life of its own, where it's like people that get together. You have the platform where you can do it. You get together and say, I want to do this. Oh, well, I could do this. Let's do this. Let's do that. And I can provide the space, whether it could be online, or then eventually some physical space where we have some events where we can get together and plan out certain things. And so that's what the idea of the pay it forward is. And so it can work as a subscription, where people can, because the resources are really to put these projects and take these projects afloat, right? In order to like have the materials, or be able to rent out a space that's needed in order to plan and get together, or whatever the case is. So the subscription is that all together we contribute in order to have this kind of pool, this of this bank where we can actually utilize it to bring these projects into fruition.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Well, thank you. Thank you so much again for being with me here, for sharing this space and talking to Diving Deep community, and getting to know you more, getting to learn more about reaching heights, and of course the PIV pledge.
Yeah.
I think that it's a wonderful thing what you're doing. Um, Please continue to stay beautiful, to spread love the way that you do, to spread hope,
Thank
um,
you.
and to empower others. Do you have any last words that you want to talk about and leave us with?
Well, just to stay tuned, I am having my relaunch November 1st of the Daily Five. It's 5 minutes on a daily basis of kind of inspiration, motivation. We have Daily Five is on reachingheightsllc.com. You can find it on Facebook, Reaching Heights, Instagram, reaching_heights, as well as a YouTube channel. So, in any format that you would like or feel comfortable with, definitely follow Reaching Heights. November 1st is the relaunch of the Daily Five, and that's where you can find everything about the PIV Pledge, as well as any services that I can provide. And I'm here to
Thank
help.
you. That is awesome. Thank you. And thank you to all the sisterhood out there that's tuning into Diving Deep. You can get more information, and we're coming at you through my website, denisecordero.com. We're also on Spotify. You can also see me on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sarvatva. That's Sarvatva. And that's the same handle at Instagram, Sarvatva as well. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.